I would like to introduce Maria Letizia Garzoli. She is our second keynote speaker. And Letizia, that's actually how she wants to be called, is an Italian architect and a design researcher. She is part of the team Learning from the Future that won the European 15 round in Weiz. And even so, the topic was somehow different. It was on productive cities. Your project had a clear focus on sustainable ideas, unifying multiple layers of actions for the city of Weiz. And it was very much tailored to the city of Weiz, or better say, to the future vision of the city of Weiz. Letizia worked in Italy, United States, and is now based in the UK. Her work mainly focuses on heritage sites and critical conservations, and I guess also critical conversations, and exhibition design. And in 2019, she got the Harvard GSD Richard Rogers Fellowship. So Letizia, we are very curious to hear what you are going to tell us.
Thank you, Iris. And hello, everyone. Let's see if I can. Might be a bit delayed. All right. Okay, yes, I'm here to represent my team, actually, with which I participated in European 15. Our project, as you mentioned, we called ourselves Learning from the Future. It was actually also the title of our project. Yes, learning from. So it's a title, it was evocative because of course it was for the future of Weiz, but also for us it's really about the process that we wanted to follow, which of course follows a bit of learning from Las Vegas, where Scott Brown and Venturi, they were learning from an environment that was unusual for architecture pedagogy. And likewise, we like to learn from environments and fields that are just are a bit outside of the usual sort of architecture milieu, but they're of course useful to learn from and also to make space for. So in the case of Weiz, we looked at the future of mobility, circular economies, how those can work, what can we learn from them, and how to engage with that. So in the case of European 16, Living Cities, we thought that what most interesting for us when the call for recognizing vulnerability in the environments and find ways to repair and pay attention, you said, and introducing new elements for a resilient environment while respecting the existing. So in that sense, we thought that for this talk, we could learn from indigenous people, essentially, because they are a great example that can really help us respond to these challenges, our challenges, everyone's challenges, and of European 16 brief. They have a very holistic approach to environments, and they actually use for this essentially the scientific system process, and they make use now of policies in an effective way. So we're going to talk about this story, an example of how from the indigenous populations world. Of course, when we talk about indigenous or native peoples, we talk about an incredible different number of cultures and locations. So in general, it's estimated by the UN there are 370 million indigenous people in the world, over 70 countries. And if we just look at the United States, there are 567 federally recognized Native American nations. So there is a great variety of again, as I said, of cultures and of systems we talk about. They are usually self-identified, and they have their characteristic is that they have a continuity with pre-colonial and pre-settler periods. They have strong links with their territories and their natural resources, and they maintain and reproduce, and they try to reproduce this ancestral, their ancestral environment and systems. More recently, they have been recognized as really frontline communities, as they are effectively the canary birds of ecological change. This because, as we said, they are closer to the land and natural ecosystems than we are, and this because their culture is based on nature and land, but also their economic system is really the core of their economic system and productive capitalist nature, essentially, and their livelihoods cannot allow to depreciate the natural capital. And unfortunately, most of their homelands are in marginal environments, so they have been disproportionately affected by climate change. So in these slides, we can see that they're essentially 5% of the world's population, but they sort of take care of 22% of the Earth's surface, and they ensure that 80% of remaining biodiversity on the planet on the surface. Sorry, just I'm stuck. There's a bit of delay in the change of slide. Oh, here we go. Okay, so just to get into a close-up, an example, we looked at these tribes. The various tribes, they fall under the name of Anishinaabe. They are located in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan. They have been in this area now for 500 years, moving from Canada and from the eastern coast of the United States. They are located in a transition zone, climatically, geographically speaking, because this green, dark green are the Norwoods that are this transitional forest between boreal forest and southern forests, and that's where you know, some changes really sensibly started to happen. There could be small changes, such as the taste of the foods they're grown there, or bigger changes, such as more intense storms that are eroding the shores of the lakes. So the tribes living there, they had to move fast and to use their knowledge of their lands to combat and to mitigate these changes. It's a bit slow. Okay, so one of the actions they took involves fish and fishing. In one of these reservation, Grand Portage, already 15 years ago, they could note a massive loss of trout species in part of a lake of a reservation, and which for them, again, it's livelihoods. And this was due because of the warming water of the lake. So in order to keep their livelihood going, they just restock the lake with other species that can thrive in warmer waters, that were walleyes and the yellow perch. But what is important here is that they just didn't let the lake go empty, essentially, which happened instead on the side of the Minnesota that is managed directly by the state. They didn't let the lake go empty. They needed to fill that space because in the chain of the ecosystem. Because again, it's a chain and every component plays a very important role. And this happened in other cases, such as also the sort of threatening of the existence of ash trees. And so what kind of species can replace that? How can that chain of the ecosystem be strengthened again? So, and this work, which is very important, they're not doing alone. Okay. Their success really was based on a joint effort with other neighboring tribes, with eventually the collaboration of national agencies and often with research institutions and so on. And in 2019, they actually came up with a tribal climate adaptation menu. So with 14 different strategies, adaptation strategies that can help guide climate change planning and adaptation, or rather planning for adaptation. And in this slide, we can see actually this is a live map that has been that is put together and constantly updated, where it shows not only what kind of adaptations are in place and are being worked in the area of the Great Lakes, but all over the United States. So if you click on each one of those sort of dots and stars, some of these strategies come up. For instance, they can vary. It could be education. It could be something similar to what the Anishinaabe tribes did. So this is very important. They put together a network and they're sharing this knowledge. And this has been recognized nationally now, finally, because it started more than 15 years ago, more than that, actually. This doesn't stop at the border of the nation, but it's really this native knowledge of how to work with the land, adapt, understand what's going on in a timely manner, has been praised, understood, recognized, accepted in global settings as well, since the early 90s. Sure, I mean, of course, these communities are facing many other struggles, so it's important that this will be recognized also for their own benefit. But it's good to see how in this timeline that actually continues, it doesn't stop in 2016, but it's a continuous work, and it's a continuous collaboration with institutions around the world. So we thought this experience, this story related to the native populations, and specifically we were looking at those in the United States, could be a very great reference point for us as participants of the competitions, practitioners, designers, but also just looking at that as a society to understand this mindset. And so to summarize some of the points that may sound obvious, but they're really all important, and if breaking down, they can offer more and more outlooks. Is paying attention which means being able to observe and understand the local ecosystems. In the case of the native nations, those were the data, the observations were collected throughout a very long period of time. So they really have a great knowledge of the changes in biodiversity over many decades or centuries even. Relationships are very important. In this case, we saw relationships within the community, so that gave them the ability to respond collectively and timely, in a timely manner. The relationships with different agencies that built up that network that can be shared outside of these groups. And then finally, the relationships with posterity as well, because that's always to keep in mind. It's thinking about 10 generations after us and what we're delivering to them, not just the time of a political administration, for instance. And then finally, diversity. And diversity means maintaining genetic and species diversity. But at the same time, not only that, about diversity in mobility, diversity in livelihoods the communities are based on. So again, sorry. This is trouble. Yes, we found this very inspiring. It's a holistic plans, holistic systems. And at the same time, we were thinking the pandemic perhaps, did offer a bit of a chance of experimenting a little bit with paying attention, relationships, understanding the importance of diversity in our own communities, in our own countries, because we instantly felt the difference. And then finally taking notice of smaller jobs, smaller ecosystems. So we wanted to close with a couple of maps that we thought were quite interesting, that were drawn by people in lockdown. For instance, this one where people finally came to redefine their boundaries, understanding the boundaries of their neighborhood. Is it nature? Is it man-made? Is it impenetrable? How are this working for me and my community? And then reconnecting with nature, so maps showing the birding maps, looking at different species around us, and finally, and of course, rediscovering relationships in the neighborhood. So these are just small signs of paying attention, but it would be great to think that this could be, and finishing really on this piece of artwork, this could be just a sign of reconnecting or creating a portal that could be cultural, that goes beyond the practice, and that can help us see and engage more with different discourses on sustainability, different worldviews, and be open to the future generations connecting with the earth more, essentially. A bit of a detour, but the story, we thought could be very inspiring for Europe on 16.
Letizia, thank you very much for this exciting excursus on the territorial scale and knitting to the local knowledge. I really enjoyed it. And I very much like the last image and the artwork, which so clearly shows what is needed in the future. Thank you very much.